Okay, then. Epic the Musical. Let's start by setting some expectations, because number one, this video is going to be titled a reaction video, because we're going to be going through each of the songs bit by bit, and I'm going to be reacting to different bits of them. But it is not, and I cannot emphasize this enough, this is not a first-time reaction. I have heard these songs before. I have heard these songs many times before. I've been playing the fucking albums regularly on repeat for months now. So it's not a first-time reaction, and if that's what you're hoping for from this thing, I'm sorry, that's not what you're going to get. You're going to get the opinionated reaction of someone who's had months to stew over this bullshit in his head. That's number one. I have not yet, like, if you want a first-time reaction to any part of Epic the Musical from me, the only one you're going to get is Ithaca, because I have resisted. I have thus far somehow managed to not listen to the Ithaca saga. It's been difficult, it's been painful, but I have managed to not listen to the Ithaca saga. So that one we are saving for an actual blind first time, never listened to it before reaction. What you'll also notice is that there's no animatic on screen, because I am not going to be reacting to the animatics, right? And I know for some people that's the thing they want, because that's and certainly that's what people might want from me, but I'm not gonna do it, right? I might do that later. That might be a separate thing that I do at a later point, where I take the animatics and I talk about those. But what I want to do here with these things is I want to listen to the songs, the music, and I want to react to the lyrics and like the musical choices and all of that. If I put an animatic on screen, I know myself very well enough that I would be spending 90% of my time yapping on about the animation and the character design and the visuals of the animatic, and I wouldn't talk about the music. And that's not what I want to do here. I know that's something that a lot of people might enjoy, so maybe later, but this is no animatics, just the music. Okay? Okay, good. Third thing, I'm gonna be singing along. I'm sorry, there's no way in hell you can stop me. I could not stop myself from doing this. I've been listening to these songs for months. I will be singing along. I will be harmonizing, sometimes poorly. There's no way to stop me. I am not a terrible singer, so it's not going to be, off-key caterwauling or whatever. Well, I'll probably go off-key every once in a while because, I'm not a professional. But that's going to happen. And if that's the kind of thing that, like, drags nails down the chalkboard of your soul, you just can't handle, you just can't stand it, that's fine. I am not offended. You can go. It's all right. Maybe someone will clip the good bits of this and you can watch it that way. That's completely fine. I just want to warn you up front. Okay. So that's what we're doing here. Next bit. We'll get to the actual thing we're here for in like an hour or so. Just sit down and hang tight. I have some yapping I need to do first. The Odyssey itself, right? I am not a classics expert. I did 3 years of history at university. I did not cover the classics very much. I am not an expert on ancient Greece or any of that. I have some knowledge, but the thing about having some knowledge is that you tend to misjudge how much knowledge you don't have. I might say some stuff over the course of these that is blatantly incorrect, which is like, and if you are a classics major, if you're someone who's actually studied this, I welcome you. Please, for the love of God, do correct me in the comments. That's completely okay. I am not an authority on any of this. So let's set that up. The same thing goes for musical theater. I am not a musical theater scholar or even a musical theater nerd very much. I know a little bit about it, but I don't know that much. So all of the deep history, the references, the lore of musical theater, outside of my wheelhouse. Similarly, I am a musician, but I don't know music theory. I am 100% self-taught via the internet. I have no concept of music theory whatsoever. I don't know how to tell what key something is in, which chords are being used, or what it's called when a melody goes the one way and then does the drop down to the other thing. I do not know these things, so I'm not going to be able to catch any of that. So that's not what you're getting here. And then there's the Odyssey. Let's talk about the Odyssey itself for a second, because one of the things that I found interesting. So, okay, I discovered Epic the Musical months ago, right around the time when Baldur's Gate 3 was first released. And the reason I discovered it is because every other edit on TikTok, every other like dramatic sort of cinematic edit of the characters that was on TikTok was set to the bit from like to the ending of Just a Man, right? Like, was a when does a comet become a meteor? When does a man become a monster? Like, that was every fucking other video. And eventually I saw enough of them that melodic line lodged itself in my brain, and I kind of went, okay, what the fuck's that from? What the fuck's that from? Like, it sounds like maybe it's a part of a cool song that might be worth listening to. What's it from? So I went looking, and eventually discovered Epic the Musical, and I had that moment of like, ooh, is this... Because, like, a thing that happens occasionally when theater kids get on the internet and get very excited about a creative project is sometimes they'll be like, let's make a musical about this thing, and it's... I don't want to shit talk too much because I don't think it's actually a bad thing. It's just a matter of personal preference, where sometimes musical theater kid projects are very enthusiastic and excited, but not really interested in engaging very deeply with the media that they are adapting into a musical, right? They can be a little quirky, a little surface, a little funny, but like maybe not have that much to say. There's nothing wrong with that. There's not a bad thing or a crime or cringe even. I don't even think it's cringe. It's just not for me, right? So I had that moment of like, oh, it's a musical adaptation of The Odyssey. Okay, does this actually have something to say? And I bring that up because I was pleasantly surprised. Listening through Epic the Musical, I realized, oh shit, this is actually engaging with the Odyssey. This is actually engaging with the story of Odysseus and what's happening to him and what that story means as it gets adapted out through the ages. It makes a lot of changes to what happens in the Odyssey, a lot of editorial decisions in order to support a central thesis. And that, I thought, was interesting because that is, like, completely in line with the history of the Odyssey. Because, and this is something that's very important to understand, again, not a classics expert, but I do know this, there is no original version of the Odyssey. What we have are versions. We have Homer's version, which is a version that probably a guy named Homer, who probably existed, although we're not 100% sure, some scholars would disagree, wrote down some thousands of years ago. And the version that he wrote down is one of the many versions of that story that would have been in circulation in his society at the time, but it's not the only one. And it's not necessarily even the most authoritative one, because there is no most authoritative version of the Odyssey. The Odyssey is a thousands of years old cultural history that was transmitted for a long time through oral tradition that has hundreds, probably has had thousands, maybe like a million different versions out there, told by different people at different times for different purposes, incorporating or like editing out details and bits as it suits the audiences that it's being told to. And the version that we have are the versions, plural, that we have are fragments of many of these different versions that have survived in many different ways across the ages. And there are people who spend their entire lives constructing different versions of the Odyssey, trying to trace the development of the Odyssey as a story throughout ancient history, the ways that it changed from culture to culture that it interacts with. That's like research projects are founded on that shit. All of this is to say, the Odyssey of Epic the Musical makes a lot of changes to the text and the events of the Odyssey. But in so doing, it's doing exactly the same thing that people have done with the Odyssey for thousands of years now. The Odyssey has always been adaptable. The Odyssey has always been changeable. It has always been altered to suit the needs and the wants of a current audience and a current author who wants to write it, who has their own reason for telling the story. This is the history of the Odyssey, right? And I bring that up because one of the things we won't be discussing here is the way in like, oh, that's not accurate to the mythology. That's not accurate to the canon of the Odyssey. No, because there is no such thing. What I will be discussing is ways in which the story chooses to deviate in content from other present, more mainstream, typical versions of the Odyssey, right? And specifically, I've read the Odyssey twice in my life. I read an old translation of it in high school, 500 billion years ago, when the Earth was young and the stars had not yet lit up the sky. That was a long time ago. More recently, I have read the excellent translation done by Emily Wilson, which is a very, very recent translation, a very modern translation. She has a lot of interesting translator's notes for the story. I really, really like it as a translation. It addresses like a lot of the weaknesses that I feel like can creep into classics translations often. It's very prosaic in a way that I really enjoy. But again, that's the version that I have most freshly in my mind, but it's not the only version, and it's not an authoritative version. Like, it's not like, oh, this is the only version that's like true. So when I compare it to Emily Wilson's translation of the Odyssey, maybe you've read a different one that phrases things differently. So those differences might come from there, right? All of this is to say, I don't want to have any debates with anyone in the comments about which bits of the Odyssey are canon. No bits of the Odyssey are canon. All bits of the Odyssey are canon. It is an oral tradition that was eventually written down. It's changeable. Is that yap enough? 10 minutes? Yeah, 10 minutes is probably enough yap for a guy who's doing a reaction video to a musical, isn't it? Let's actually listen to the first of the songs.
Alright, my brothers, listen closely. Tonight we make the Trojans pay. 10 years of war, they killed us slowly. But now we'll be the ones who slay.
Okay, so this theme, right?
Alright, my brothers, listen closely. Tonight
This is sort of the introduction of something that Epic the Musical is going to do 100 million times, right? Like, which is that motif of like, here's a motif that plays in situations of like danger or when a character is taking control of things. Like, and this is something that the composer Jorge Rivera-herrans, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that entirely correctly. Let's just call him Jorge from now on, or in Danish, Jarl. Something that he pays a lot of attention to. And one of the things I quite like about Epic the Musical is that there's clearly a lot of very careful consideration that goes into establishing leitmotifs and reinforcing and exploiting them ruthlessly, like constantly with the leitmotifs over and over again, identifying characters with individual instruments. Like I believe Odysseus's instrument is like the electric guitar, and like Penelope has the string instrument, cello. I think it's a cello that's Penelope's, and every character has their instruments, and the gods have like synthesizers and stuff. They have electronic instruments, whereas all the human characters have more like analog instruments. It's like there's a lot of that thought that's gone into Epic the Musical that makes it a really, really rewarding thing to pay attention to the music in. Because you start to notice, oh, this shit is absolutely everywhere. It's a very, very dopamine, like, oh, I noticed the thing, that thing from there, I see what's there. That I really like. It's one of the things that's attracted me to Epic the Musical. Anyway, the thing I actually wanted to pay attention to here also is...
Alright, my brothers, listen closely.
Tick.
Tonight
talk,
we make the Trojans pay.
Talk. Right, so we have the clock motif that's playing here in the background, and that's associated with Athena, because Athena has this ability to, air quotes, stop time. Not quite. I think he conceptualizes, again, the composer conceptualizes it as Athena has like the anime power to think so fast that it seems like time is moving slowly. But the musical motif for that is the tick tock, right? And so one of the things I've come to really enjoy about this very first song is you can hear Athena is present, right? Like Athena is listening. She's present in what Odysseus is doing right now, which is he is laying down a plan as a general for how to win this battle with maximum efficiency. He's being a warrior of the mind and so on. And I like that. We'll talk more about Athena's role in the Troy saga as we go on. I think we'll save it for Warrior of the Mind. No, we won't. I know myself. I'm going to save it for later. No, I'm going to talk about it immediately the moment it springs into my mind, because that's the way that I am as a person. But I'm going to try. I'm going to attempt valiantly, with strength, to save it for later. Let's move on.
Alright, my brothers, listen closely. Tonight we make the Trojans pay. 10 years of war, they killed us slowly. But now we'll be the ones who slay.
There's some wonderful people doing that little acting out, lip syncing to the music. I've seen them do where it's like where they do this bit, and then when it's slay, they do the little the little gay gesture, because slay, which is adorable, very fun. But it's wormed its way into my head, and now I can't help but think it every time I hear the damn line.
Ones who slay. Think of your wives and your children. Your families wonder where you've been. They're growing old and yet you're still here. Do what I say and you'll see them again.
Yes, sir!
Diomedes will lead the charge. Agamemnon will flank the guards.
Right. And I like the build-up here as well, right? Because we go from... We have this, like, reversed guitar thing, right? Like, with a guitar chord that's either being just built, like... Not reversed, probably. I think it's just being... it's just gaining. It could be reversed. I don't know. That then goes into the like, which is the main riff, but it's very quiet, right? It's.
All right, my brothers, listen closely.
And the way he's singing it is also like he's not whisper singing, but he's like, all right, my brothers, listen closely. But then he builds and builds and builds, right? Like,
Tonight, 10 years of war, they
killed us slowly, but now they'll be the ones who slay. Right, that's the build-up of like when he mentions violence, right? Like now we're gonna be the ones who do the fucking murdering. Boom. That's when we get this. This. It sounds like a choir. Like it sounds like a synth choir. Oh, and then maybe some violins or something. Like that's when we get that first extra layering, and we start to hear the electric guitar riff. Like that. That's sharp.
Your families wonder where you've been.
Driving in the bottom of it. And then
Do what I say and you'll see them again.
Yes, sir! And this is where we get to another one of the adaptation things, right? So this here.
Do what I say and you'll see them again.
Yes, sir! That thing of everyone calling out in unison, yes, sir! That's a very modern coding, right? We don't know. We have no idea what ancient Greek soldiers might have sounded like on the battlefield, what the commandments might have sounded like. We don't know. Like, if a Greek commander yelled an order to his troops, would they all yell back like, yes, sir? Who knows? We don't actually know that. Like, it's not entirely improbable, but this thing of, like, a commander giving an order and then all the troops in unison going, yes, sir, as, like, a signifier of the commander is in control, right? Like, the commander's orders are being listened to and the soldiers are obeying. That's a very modern signifier, right? Like, that's a very modern thing that we understand from modern war movies and, like, narratives about this stuff, but which has, like, well, which isn't really a thing. This would probably not have been how that kind of command went at the time with a soldier, and with a commander. Probably not quite how it went. Especially given the people that Odysseus are commanding here, right? Agamemnon, Diomedes, like, these people are not random-ass soldiers from nowhere. These people are legendary heroes in their own right. Like, they're legendary figures. They are kings. They are, like, commanders of some substantial authority of their own, right? Like, and Odysseus can't just order them around. If he had tried to simply order them around, this is something that's very present in like the Iliad, is like these constant fights and disagreements over authority and who should do what and who obeys whom, and like whose plan needs to be followed when, and who gets to give counsel and who gets to get listened to. That's a constant matter of concern in the Iliad. That's something that characters fight over a lot, and a lot of people. This is something that's funny about Odysseus. The Romans called him Ulysses, right? And they didn't like him very much. When you read Roman translations of the Odyssey or the Iliad, Odysseus is often considered, like, framed as a bit of an asshole and a bit of a bastard, because he was a bastard. He was a lying, stealing, scheming bastard, and that's something that's very present in the Odyssey as well. When you read it as a modern audience, it's like, this man's a piece of shit in a lot of ways. Like, he's just kind of a shitbag. He is not what we would traditionally consider a hero in modern terminology, because he's not very loyal, actually. Like, he's loyal to some people in some circumstances, but Odysseus is first and foremost out for number one, right? He's out for himself first and foremost. And the principal concern of a lot of the Odyssey is not honor, it's not truth, it's not honesty, it's not virtue. What it's concerned with, and one of the big perils of the Odyssey, like one of the big sort of dangers that the Odyssey is about, oh, if Odysseus cannot make it home, then this terrible thing shall come to pass. The terrible thing that shall come to pass is he's going to lose his house and all of his riches. Like, that's the main thing in the Odyssey as it exists mostly. And again, I'm going on the Emily Wilson translation. It's like, oh, if he doesn't make it home, why, one of the suitors will take his wife and he shall lose all of his gold and his riches, and he will lose his fine farm and his stature. It's all about, like, Odysseus is going to lose all his cool stuff. And so much of when Odysseus wins glory, when he wins honor, is, oh, I came home, I got all of this loot, right? All of this loot from Troy, which he eventually loses. All of the loot he gets from visiting with the king of the fuck are they called? The last peoples that Odysseus visits before he returns to Ithaca, who Poseidon slaughters, they give him like fine presents and gifts and stuff, and the story is very concerned with like, it's so good that he has won all this glory in the form of material wealth, right? So much of the Odyssey is about concerns about material wealth, right? Like that's a lot of the peril. It's not really so much about can Odysseus get home while preserving his soul and his noble spirit. No, it's can Odysseus get home and still be rich is the main concern of the story. I think I got away from my point a little bit. The point being, this thing of like, men, I give you an order. Yes, sir. That is a very modern coding of something that probably wouldn't have been that way in the past. That's not a criticism. That's just an observation of the ways in which Epic the Musical has to adapt the way that it codes the narrative to get its point across, right? Like that Odysseus is listened to, that he's seen as a commander of men. We signify that in the music by having the soldiers that he's commanding go back to him, yes, sir, like they're soldiers in the modern, like at boot camp, right?
Do what I say and you'll see them again. Yes, sir!
Diomedes will lead the charge. Agamemnon will flank the gods.
Menelaus will let our mates through the gates to take the whole city at large. Teucer will shoot any ambush attacking. Little Ajax will stay back. Nestor, secure Helen and protect her.
Yes,
Neo,
sir.
avenge your father, kill the brothers of Hector.
Yes, sir.
Find that inner strength now. Use that well of pride. Fight through every...
The rhythm here is fantastic, right? And I think part of the point of this is also to demonstrate...
Diomedes will lead the charge. Agamemnon will flank the guards.
Oh, God, there's so much here. So I think part of the point of this whole sequence, right, is to demonstrate that Odysseus talks fast and, like, holds many complex plans in his head, right? Like, he has this whole fucking battle plan mapped out, and he's rattling it off at the speed of light, like, you do that, you do that, you do that, you do that. Like, he has all of these plans. He's constantly the first guy to think of a plan or an idea, right? And I think part of the reason why that's being done is to set up for later when Odysseus starts to run into situations he cannot think his way out of, is that first we establish this man is like, he knows his shit, he knows how to handle battle plans, set shit up, get things ready, deal with a combat situation. Then there's also the
Diomedes will lead the charge. Agamemnon will flank the guards. Menelaus will let our mates through the gates to take the whole city at large. Teucer will shoot...
I think that's the danger theme. I'm not 100% sure. I think that's the theme of like this is the theme that plays when things get dangerous, like when there's peril. So underneath all of Odysseus's confidence, right? Like that, like, yes, here's the plan, here's what we're gonna do. We've got the electric guitar just going. We've got him rattling off commands at like the speed of light, which like with like very good diction. That's one thing I want to call out here is like singing this thing so fast.
Diomedes will lead the charge.
Agamemnon will flank the gods. Menelaus will lead the men through the gates to take the whole city at large. Like it's rhythmically complex, and it's a difficult thing to sing all of that clearly in a way that's like legible. The diction that's being employed here is something I find genuinely quite impressive, because going that fast and still being comprehensible, that's not trivial. That's not easy. There's a reason I don't sing along to this bit of the song.
City at large. Teucer will shoot any ambush attacking. Little Ajax will stay back. Nestor, secure Helen and protect her. Neo, avenge your father, kill the brothers of Hector.
Yes, sir.
Find that inner strength now. Use that well of pride. Fight through every pain now. Ask yourself inside.
What do you live for?
What do you try for? What do you wish for? What do you fight for?
What do you live for? What do you try for? What do you wish for? What do you fight for?
Right, and then we come down from
Yes, sir.
Find that inner strength.
like him hyping up his troops, hyping them up, like, find that inner strength, use that well of pride, what do you fight for, what do you live for, what do you try for, right? Like all of this, like fine, like he's hyping up his troops, and then we drop.
Penelope,
And Telemachus,
I fight for us. I fight for us.
And this is one thing I find very interesting about Epic the Musical. One of the inspirations that becomes very, very apparent in it as you listen through it is like, oh, this kid has watched a lot of fucking anime. It's like, there's so much fucking anime influence in here. And that to me is a fascinating, like, that's a fascinating combination of influences, isn't it? To take a bunch of, like, hype shonen anime battle manga shit and stuff that into the form of a, like, stage musical that is adapting something like the Odyssey. This ancient sort of August, oh yes, this is one of the classics, as Western culture, blah, blah, blah. Like, one of these things that we think of as like so high and mighty, right? So fanciful. So like, oh yes, this is an ancient story about heroes and true ideals that form the foundation of, blah, like, and ruthlessly modernizing it. That's one of the things I quite like about Epic the Musical, is that it is very intentional in modernizing the Odyssey, not in the sense of trying to make it relevant for the kids, but in the sense of this is what this looks like through the lens of someone whose cultural background includes these things, includes anime, includes shonen battle manga. Like, what does hype look like to this guy? Well, it fucking looks like Goku going Super Saiyan. Like that's, and I like that, and you can kind of already feel that here. Like, certainly this is very movie, right? Like, not necessarily anime, but this is very movie, right? Like, we have this build-up of tension, build-up of tension, build-up of tension.
What do you fight for? What do you live for? What do you try for? What do you wish for? What do you fight for?
And then
What do you fight for?
heartbeat, right? Because this is Odysseus listening to his heart, and his heart is beating fast because he is scared, right? And I think that's an extension of...
Yes, sir.
That's an extension of like the danger theme or like the peril theme that's playing in here. It's like he's going through the speech, he's hyping up his men, he's giving the orders, he's laying the commands, building up to a crescendo, and then poof, we go inside his head where he's sitting with his heartbeat like do 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 do. As he's thinking about like what does he fight for, what does he live for, what does he try for. So we get these like soft flying strings and silence, and just the voice. And Telemachus, I fight for us, I fight for us. Right, and then as he, like, this feels like this would be the moment when he opens his eyes, right? I fight for us, opens his eyes. Now all the sounds of the rest of the world begin to come back. We get like the other soldiers, like, what do you live? We get the chorus of the soldiers, and then we get into like battle scene time.
I fight for us.
What do you live for?
And that's the electric guitar, right? Like the electric guitar starts diddly 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 in the underneath this, which is
What do you live for?
Penelope.
What do you try for?
Telemachus.
What do you wish for?
I'm on my way.
What do you fight for? Attack!
Like, so that's there again. And we get a lot of sound design here. And again, fully on some anime noise shit, right? Like, this sounds like we've got 14 shonen battle animes going on in the background. It sounds like people are fucking throwing attacks out. It sounds like energy beams are supposed to be flying around in the background here. And I do like that. Like, that's when this particular author conceptualizes what would be the sounds of battle that like, when I think of what does a battle sound like, it's not just screams of pain. It's right, it's those noises. It's the noises of a fighting game. And then he takes a hit. Sounds of thunder. Ooh, guess who it is?
What was that?
A vision. Oh yeah, right, the eagle cry first, because Zeus and the eagle are identified. But which eagle is that? That's another one of those coding things, right? Like, we recognize this, oh, that's the sound of an eagle cry. No, it's the sound of a very specific eagle cry. I don't remember the species, but it's the eagle cry that you get in Westerns, right? Like, it's the eagle cry that is the eagle cry that you hear in, like, movies and stuff. But most eagles in the world don't sound like that. I don't believe the eagles of Greece ever sounded like that. So that's another one of those little things of, like, we recognize that as an eagle cry, but eagles have 100 different types of cries. Like, they sound very different in many different... I don't even think it's an eagle, actually, if I'm remembering the history correctly. Let me just fucking Google this. Because I think I can Google it. It's the The cinematic eagle cry. God damn it. Let's see. Here's an authentic bald eagle vocalization. If I can get it to play. No? Okay, fine. They won't tell me what bird it's actually from. Come on. Anyway, but it's not a real eagle cry. Or rather, I think it might be a real eagle cry, but I believe most sound effects are like composites that aren't actually recorded from real birds. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Zeus. A vision of what is to come cannot be outrun, can only be dealt with right here and now.
Tell me how.
I don't think you're ready.
A mission
To kill someone's son, a foe who won't run, unlike anyone you have faced before. Say no more, I know that I'm ready. I don't think you're ready. And then the glockenspiel. Again, that's such a modern, like, ancient Greece back then, ain't no fucking glockenspiels back there, but that's, again, it's the signifier that we recognize as, oh, fuck, that's a baby. And I do like... Zeus as a character in Epic the Musical is kind of interesting to me for a lot of reasons, but...
A vision of what is to come cannot be outrun, can only be dealt with right here and now.
Right, so Zeus shows up and is like, this is a vision of what's to come, a vision that can't be outrun, you can only deal with this here and now, because, like, this is only here now. And Odysseus accepts it, right? Like, because Zeus is the one saying it. You kind of don't have a choice in the matter.
Tell me how.
I don't think you're ready. And that's true, right?
A mission
To kill someone's son, a foe who won't run, unlike anyone you have faced before. And I like that everything Zeus is saying there is just the truth, right? It's the truth, it's just that Odysseus doesn't have enough context to fully understand what the truth means. He doesn't yet have the context to understand that it's a foe who won't run because it's a baby, right? Unlike any foe you faced before, because you're not in the habit of murdering babies. This is not entirely true with Odysseus, I think, but, like, I like that Zeus, smug and sort of very pleased with himself, is telling Odysseus the truth just so he can give him the reveal, right?
Say no more. I know that I'm ready.
I don't think you're ready.
And then here, my interpretation here
Ready.
I don't think you're ready.
is that the other voices that join in here are the other gods on Olympus who are joining in with this as their I don't think you're ready, right? Like they're harmonizing that.
Ready.
I don't think you're ready.
It's just.
Right. And then we get this bit, which is what I think of as the Ithaca theme or something like it. Like this to me feels like a theme that's playing when Odysseus is remembering Ithaca.
It's just an
infant. It's just a boy. What sort of imminent threat does he pose that I cannot avoid? And the instrumentation makes it very clear that Odysseus is, like, soft, right? Like, that seeing this child, he's going soft. Immediately, the world becomes soft. No electric guitar, no big drums, no nothing. He's just seeing this baby, this child, and he's like, well, how could this thing possibly be a threat to me?
This is the son of none other than Troy's very own Prince Hector. Know that he will grow from a boy to an avenger, one fumed with rage as you're consumed by age. If you don't end him now, you have no one left to save. You can say goodbye to Penelope. You can say goodbye to Penelope.
Right, so another interesting thing here. Zeus is explicitly presenting this of like, well, this is the son of Troy's Prince Hector, and he'll grow up from a boy to an avenger, and he'll kill you. Like, if you don't kill him now, this guy will grow up into a man, he'll become an adult, and he'll find you, and he will slaughter you and your family, and he'll kill you. That's definitely what's going to happen, which is why you should definitely kill this child right now, right?
If you don't end it now, you'll have no one left to save. You can say goodbye to Penelope.
And we get the heartbeat back also.
You can say goodbye to
Penelope.
You can say goodbye to
Penelope. I could raise him as my own. Send him far away from home. Make sure his past is never known.
Down on my knees for ya.
This is the will of the gods. And then thunderclap. So this sequence here, right? Zeus has framed this problem as, we're doing you a favor here, buddy. This kid gonna grow up to kill the fuck out of you. Just murderize you entirely, kill your family, kill your friends, kill everyone you've ever known. This kid, this is baby Hitler, effectively. I'm giving you a chance to kill baby Hitler before he can, like, 1944 you, right? That's essentially the framing that Odysseus is coming here with. I can help you prevent a terrible disaster in the future if you do this terrible thing now.
You can say goodbye.
I could raise him as my own.
Or send him far away from home. Make sure his past is never known. Right, so Odysseus begins to come up with objections, right? Like, well, I could raise him as my own. I could adopt him. I could take him home with me, right? Like, do I have to kill him? Is there not some other way to stop him growing up into this thing? I could raise him as my own. Send him far away from home. Make sure his past is never known, right? Like, all of these other options for how could we make sure this kid doesn't grow up to be an avenger?
I could raise him as my own.
He will burn your house and home. He'll find you wherever you go. His past will make it known.
Down on my knees for ya. I'm begging, please. Will of the gods.
Right, and as Odysseus objects, Zeus counteracts his every objection, right? He will burn your house and home. He'll find you wherever you go. Right, he'll burn your house and home. He'll find you wherever you go. Like, it doesn't matter. All of these objections, all this, like, he'll burn your house and home. He will find you, right? The gods will make it known. And this is one that's very telling to me. Right? Make sure his past is never known. And then Zeus counters with, the gods will make it known. Right? Like, oh, you think you can just send him away and like we'll make sure he never hears about his destiny or his past? We'll just tell him, motherfucker. If you don't kill him, we'll tell him, and we will make sure that this thing comes to pass, right? And this is where the mood changes, right? From Zeus showing up like, I'm giving you a vision, I'm giving you a chance to kill baby Hitler before he can do World War II. Now it's shifting to say, no, actually, you have to kill this baby because I said so. Because if you don't do it, we will make sure that he will burn your house and home. We will make sure that he will find you wherever you go. We will make sure that his past will be known, right? So here comes the bit like Odysseus says. Odysseus goes, I'd rather bleed for you. I'm on my knees for you. Like, please don't make me do this. Like, make me hurt myself instead. I'll do anything other than kill this child. And right, we're bringing you down on your knees. This is the will of the gods. Thunderclap. Right?
Please don't make me do this. Don't make me do this.
Right, and that's sort of where the artifice falls away, that the gods are not doing this for Odysseus' benefit. Zeus just wants him to kill a baby, right? This scene is like, hey, Odysseus, tell you what, great deal for you here. Kill that kid, save yourself a lot of trouble in the future. But I don't want to kill that kid. Kill the fucking child, right? The tone changes. It's like, no. This is good for you, we have decided. And you're gonna do it, we have decided, because it is the will of the gods, right? Not because it's good for Odysseus, not because it prevents a disaster, not because of any of that, but because Zeus has decided that this is how it's gonna go, this is how I'm gonna make it go, right?
The blood on your hands is something you won't lose. All you can choose is whose.
And there we get, like, Zeus's conclusion, right? The blood on your hands is something you won't lose. All you can choose is whose blood, right? And that's that constrainment, right? Like, no option not to have blood on your hands. Sorry, buddy, we have decided that blood will be on your hands. That is just a thing that's going to happen because fuck you. What we will give you is a little bit, just a tiny bit of freedom to make some decisions about whose blood when, right? And this is where, like, so in the Odyssey, again, Emily Wilson's translation, when I read it, there are many, many times when Odysseus curses the gods, where he goes like, God fucking damn it, Zeus, God fucking damn it, all of you. And there are multiple characters who curse the gods over and over again. But when they curse the gods, there's always this element of like, but I don't mean it though. There's this element of like, oh, the gods, why have they seen fit to inflict such misery on me? Oh, it's so miserable. But also, they have the right to do it. It's completely their right. Like, no one has the right to gainsay the gods. Of course, Zeus, you can inflict as much punishment on me as you want. That's your right as king of the gods. It just really sucks. Okay, there is this constant refrain of not only reverence for the gods, but fear of the gods, terror of the gods. That, like, as though even in complaining about the misery of fate that the gods have inflicted upon you, you are very careful not to say, well, fuck you, gods. You're not very careful not to disrespect them because they have absolute authority and power over your life, right? The gods can do whatever the fuck they want. They are the only creatures in the universe that have the power to change or resist or define fate. Mortals do not have that power. There is this unconquerable gap between gods and mortals, where the gods do as they please, and the mortals suffer what they must, right? And what I found interesting is that that's kind of reflected here, right? Like that eventually, the moment Odysseus does not obey immediately, Zeus just swaps over to a threat, right? Like, it's like, yeah, cool. Like, I wasn't having a debate with you, actually. I was performing my role as deliverer of prophecy, and now you're going to do what I said, or else.
All you can choose is whose.
Right, so we get this establishment of the constrainment of freedom that sort of exists in this universe. And the role of the gods and the role of fate is something we'll come back to as we discuss Epic the Musical. The way that fate and, like, the immutability of fate is discussed and constructed is something that we will definitely be coming back to over the course of this discussion, especially when it comes to the involvement of Athena and the way that her character is handled. This is also where I have some criticisms of Epic the Musical. But first, let's move on to Just a Man. Okay, well, it only took me about, an hour to get through the first 4-minute song, so we'll probably be here for a while. It's probably a good decision I made not to do the animatics, because this video would probably have been like 9 hours long. But hey, I can still make it. Let's listen to the song that got me into this fucking thing in the first place. So again, we are moving away from, like, the Odyssean electric guitars, right? Like, and we have this acoustic guitar arrangement with, like, strings and softness, which I think of that as the family theme, the Ithaca theme, the I'm thinking of my family, my home kind of thing.
I look into your eyes and I think back to the son of mine. You're as old as he was when I left for war. Will these actions haunt my days? Every man I've slain is the price I pay. Endless pain. Close your eyes and spare yourself the view. How could I hurt you?
So this is an interesting song because he's singing to the infant, right? He's singing to the child that he's about to throw off of the fucking walls of Troy. And this is where one of the adaptation things come in, right? Because Odysseus in the ancient conception, the way that he's usually portrayed in translations of the Odyssey, killing an infant is like, oh yeah, no, sure. Sure, like that's not really something that's ever brought up as a traumatic point for him in the versions of the Odyssey that I've read. It's not something he goes, ah, shit, man, I really regret killing that child. It's like, no, it's just a thing you have to do because of the god said so, right? It's not really something that's brought up either as a trauma or even as something that Odysseus had to make a particularly difficult decision about. In fact, like, the Iliad and the things that happened in the Odyssey, in the Iliad, are not really brought up that much in the Odyssey at all, except when he goes to the underworld, which we'll talk with my actual favorite song of the whole fucking musical later. It's not really brought up that much, like, except that Odysseus sacked the holy town of Troy, right? Like, that's sort of the main thing that's brought up about it. The infant that he slays, or the war crimes that he commits over the course of this, or the betrayals and the murders that he commits, Odysseus is not really portrayed as a traumatized person explicitly as much in the Odyssey. Now, I would argue, and I think I've seen other literary theorists argue, that you can definitely see the Odyssey as a coded poetic representation of concepts of, like, post-traumatic stress disorder or war trauma, in the sense that Odysseus brings the violence of war to his home when he goes to war with the suitors and murders all of them and kills his own servants for, like, consorting with them, and, like, really brings a lot of brutality home. You can definitely make that thematic argument that, like, maybe part of the point of the Odyssey is the way in which people bring war home with them, even after they've like, there is no coming home from war, right? Even after 20 years. As it's presented in the story itself, though, like, not really. Like the war that Odysseus almost starts in Ithaca. He almost starts a civil war in Ithaca because he murders all of the suitors so brutally that Athena just kind of has to go down and say, actually, you're not going to have a war because gods say so. Stop that. Bye-bye. And then the story is kind of over because a deus ex machina happened, right? Like, because Athena literally just came down and said, no more war, please. Thank you. Bye. You can definitely see it as that, but trauma, war trauma, the idea that Odysseus can't sleep because he just hears the screams of the dead in his head over and over again, and all the things he has sacrificed, that's very much something that Epic the Musical is inventing as a major theme of the story. And I like that. That's interesting. And it's one of those things that, and we'll talk about that once we talk about Circe, it's one of those changes that the story kind of has to make in order to make Odysseus comprehensible or sympathetic to us, even as a modern audience, is he has to have that vulnerability, right? Like, he has to have that vulnerability to suffering, to pain, to trauma that isn't just the inconvenience of not being allowed to go home, but, like, that the things he has done, the actions he's taken, the decisions that he's made have consequences for him, not just materially, but psychologically. And that's, like, again, if you read the Odyssey just as it is, you don't come away with a sympathetic view of Odysseus. Like, one of the first things Odysseus, like, once he's murdered all of the suitors and murdered his own slaves for being nice to the suitors too much, one of the first things he says to his wife after he's home is like, okay, well, those suitors ate a whole lot of my cattle. Time for me to go raiding, right? One of the first things he does when he's home is like, I don't have as much wealth as I used to. I should go steal some wealth from someone else. I should go steal some cattle, right? It's one of the first things he does. And again, the story portrays this narratively as like, oh yeah, it's because he's a smart, wise king who's good at what he does. And he knows what he's doing. So of course he's going to go raiding. That's the sensible, smart, honorable thing to do. So you don't come away from the Odyssey with a positive impression of Odysseus as a person, really. Again, he's really not a hero in the sense that we understand it. So Epic the Musical has to spend a lot of time humanizing and getting into Odysseus' head psychologically as a character to make sure that we sympathize with him and that we give a shit about whether or not he gets to go home. Because in the Odyssey, short of just the constant cavalcade of troubles and struggles and the interesting things that he encounters, right? Like, the fascinating places that he goes. As a modern audience, the Odyssey isn't that compelling as like a sort of thriller, right? Of like, oh my god, is he ever going to make it home? Like, that's not really in question. That's not even in question in the Odyssey. In the Odyssey, he just gets to go home. Like, it's his fate to go home. It's never in question from the side of like the reader. He's like, of course he goes home. We know that he goes home because it's his fate to go home and he can't defy his fate. But Epic the Musical has to really push very hard on those psychological points of characterization that we're used to as a modern audience in order to be able to sympathize with him. So Odysseus holding this infant over the wall of Troy, getting ready to drop him, has to have like this long conversation with the child and with himself where he justifies his actions. And it's that justification that I'm a little bit interested in. I'm just a man who's trying to go home, even after all the years away from what I've known. I don't have the range that he has.
Who's fighting for his life. Deep down I would trade the world to see my son and wife. I'm just a man.
Right, so Odysseus, the conversation he has with this infant that he's about to murder for no reason, except that he was told to, is, I'm just a man who's trying to go home, right? Even, like, I've been away from home for so long, I'm just a man, I'm just a person, I'm fragile, right? I can't be expected.
I'm just a man who's trying to go home.
Right, I'm not a murderer, I'm not a killer, I'm just a man who's trying to go home.
Even after all the years away from what I've known, I'm just a man.
Right, even after all the years I've been away from home, I'm just a man who's fighting for his life.
Who's fighting for his life.
And again, props to the delivery. Who's fighting for his life? Right, like he really gives him that little falter, right? Like, I'm just a man who's fighting for his life. Like, almost like this slight faltering in his voice as he's sort of almost begging this child, he is begging this child to forgive him for what he's about to do. Forgiveness which he does not deserve.
Down I would trade the world to see my son and wife. Deep down I would trade the world to see my son and wife. Deep down I would trade the world to see my son and wife.
So I played that one 3 times because I want you to remember it, right? Like, he says this immediately. We are told this information about Odysseus in the very first bit of the story. Deep down, I would trade the world to see my son and wife, right? He will sacrifice anything, everything, as much as is needed, however much blood, however many corpses, however much killing he has to do, even if he has to murder a baby. He will do it to see his son and wife, right? And again, that's one of the things of Epic the Musical, in order to get us to sympathize with this man, right? In order to be like, that's a villain, Odysseus. That's what the bad guy does. I have something that I want so much that I'm willing to screw over everyone else in the world to get it. Okay, asshole, fuck you then, right? Like, it's not heroic. Which is why I think, like, the story has a song like this, where we see, like, yes, Odysseus is willing to kill everyone else if it means getting home to the people that he loves, but it is because he genuinely, deeply, deeply yearns for them, right? Like, he loves them, and that love makes him weak, right? Like, not in the sense of, like, morally weak, or being a bad, like, not in the sense of like, weakness of character, but it makes him weak in the sense that he can't find it in him to resist the gods for this. Right, like Zeus and the whole chorus of the gods came down and was like, either you kill this baby, or else everyone you have ever loved will die and you'll never see them again. Odysseus does not have the strength to take that bargain. He does not have the strength to sacrifice himself and his family for this child. He can't do it. He loves his wife and his son and his home too much to do that, right? That's the one thing in the world he cannot sacrifice, is his wife, his son, and his home. He can't do it. He's not strong enough because he's just a man, right? And that's a complicated thing, because, like, there are definitely things that I'm not sure that I'm strong enough to sacrifice, Even if I should. Even if the heroic thing to do is to sacrifice them. There are things I might not be able to do that for. And that's not necessarily a good thing about me. That's not a quality to my character, necessarily. Like, those might be some of the uglier parts of me, if I'm being quite honest. That there are things where I just would not be able to put the needs of the many above the needs of myself, right? Greater moral justice above my own wants. There might be things where I'm not able to do that. That's a hard thing to confront. And this song does that, right? Like, this song makes that very explicit. It's like, yeah, this guy, Odysseus, he has that limitation. He's not a hero. He isn't a hero, right? He's not Superman, right? Superman always does the right thing no matter what it might cost him. Spider-Man always does the right thing no matter what it might cost him, and it costs Spider-Man quite a lot. These character archetypes exist. Like, Spider-Man, I think, is actually a lot closer to Odysseus in Epic the Musical. What a random thought, but the song confronts that weakness in him, and that hypocrisy also. So remember that. Odysseus says it immediately. Deep down, I would trade the world to see my son and wife. I would sacrifice anything and everything. I will murder an infant to get this. And that's the context for the next bit.
But when
Does a comet become a meteor? When does a candle become a blaze? When does a man become a monster? When does a ripple become a tidal wave? When does a reason become the blame? When does a man become a monster? When
does a comet become a meteor? When does a candle become
forgive me,
a monster?
forgive me.
Does a man become a monster? I'm just a man.
This is one place where I think Epic the Musical also pulls its punch a little bit. I can't help but feel that this song should have been punctuated by the thud of the child's body hitting the ground. Right, that's brutal, that's grim, right? Like, I have the feeling about this song that during this bit,
But when
if we could hear just a little bit of an infant crying, like, not overwhelming, like, not, but just like a little bit, and then thud, the child's body hits the ground. Epic the Musical doesn't do that, right? Like, we get all of the sound design for the battle, right? Like, whoa, here, oh, we got clang, clang, clang swords. All of that sound design. Here, we don't get that. Here, we are exclusively inside of Odysseus' sound space, inside his head, right? Like, we don't get to hear from the infant. The infant doesn't get to be characterized, really. It's an object in this scene. It's not a person. And that is a slight... It's not a strong criticism that I have. It's not like, oh, this song is ruined by that. No, this song is a fucking banger. I have sung this song so many fucking times in the shower, you would not believe it. This song is so fucking good. I should make that clear, by the way. I really like Epic the Musical. I have many things to say about it. I have many things to discuss about it that I think are flaws or problems or bad, or I would have done this differently, or maybe if you'd done that, I will nitpick the shit out of this thing, but I want you to understand from the bottom of my heart that I've been singing these fucking songs. I've been singing along to them. I've been listening to them. I've been enjoying them. I love it. I love this fucking stupid musical and all of the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful bits of it, and also all of the slightly not so great bits about it. I love it. I adore it. Every criticism I'm about to frame comes from a place of love. I think it pulls its punch with Just a Man. Because what Odysseus is doing here is he's demonstrating that he will kill an infant, a child, in order to get home. And it pulls the punch on that a little bit. We don't hear the child crying. We don't hear the thud of the body. Like, we don't hear the physical trauma of it. We don't get to hear from the person that he's murdering, right? Like, we don't get to hear the child screaming, crying, maybe metaphorically begging for mercy from him. We don't get to hear that. We don't get to hear him perform that. And the reason why I think that matters is because a central theme of this whole story is ruthlessness. Right? Ruthlessness is mercy upon yourself. Odysseus knows this. This is what he does in this song. He acts on Poseidon's later maxim that ruthlessness is mercy upon yourself. That's what this is. This is the moment that Odysseus becomes the monster. At least in my... I should say, this is my interpretation of the story. Like, Odysseus is going to go through a process over the course of his journey home where he, like, gets pushed and pushed and pushed harder and harder until he breaks, until he finally fully embraces the monster openly. But this is the moment he becomes the monster. Like, it starts here, because this is when Odysseus embraces ruthlessness, above all else. And he's going to spend the rest of the musical... I don't know about the Ithaca Saga. Please don't spoil it for me in the comments, by the way, the Ithaca Saga. I didn't say that explicitly, but please don't do that. I'd like to listen to it myself, please. This is when Odysseus embraces ruthlessness. Deep down, I would trade the world to see my son and wife. I'm just a man. Whoop. Bye-bye, baby. That's ruthlessness. That is total ruthlessness. These things are not something that the journey is putting into him. The journey isn't making him ruthless. The journey isn't making him a monster. It's bringing the monster out of him that was already there. He was a monster here. He was crying about it. He was whining about it. He was begging for forgiveness about it. I'm just a man. Like, I'm just trying to go home. I don't want to do this, but I have to because Zeus said it. He is already ruthless. He's not embracing it. He's not honest with himself about it yet. But he murders a baby. And that's why I think it would have been a little more effective. I think it would have been a little more powerful if here, when Odysseus is at his most solipsistic, right? When he's like, when does a candle become a blaze? When does a man become a monster? Like, when he's really in his feelings about it, right? Like, when does a ripple become a tidal wave? Like, he's having these considerations about, like, when do these little cruelties add up to a monster, right? Like, when does all of these little things that I'm doing, when do they make me a monster? When does a man become a monster? Well, I argue it's when he murders a child in cold blood. I think if the infant has been present, if we hadn't been able to hide from it, because the song is only the song, because we only hear Odysseus' voice, and I think maybe that's also part of the point, that maybe that's also part of the point of doing it this way, is to make sure that the audience is in only Odysseus' perspective on this, right? Like, that we don't get to see the world from outside of his perspective yet. Again, I haven't listened to the Ithaca Saga. Maybe the Ithaca Saga is going to do that, is going to sort of pull back from Odysseus and see him through someone else's eyes and go like, holy shit, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Maybe. I don't know. Don't spoil it for me. Maybe the point of this is to stay only in Odysseus' perspective, right? Like, to never step outside of it, so we only get his justifications, so we only get his agonizing over it and his sob story and his sobbing and his crying over what he is deciding to do. But he is the monster here. And in my head, I just imagine like a little bit of a baby's crying in between here. Right? A little bit of crying. And then
I'm just a man.
Thud. And again, maybe this is in the animatics. Like, maybe the animatics show this explicitly. I'm not commenting on the animatics. I'm not talking about the animatics. I'm only talking about the music. I'm only talking about the songs, right? Just so we're clear on that. So if you're about to leave a comment, it's like, oh, they do that in the animatic. Cool. That means the animatic is a more effective way of telling the story. That's a compliment to the animatic. I think it's missing in the music, is the point I'm trying to make. I understand pulling your punch like that also. Like, it's also... like, I will say, it might be it's that thing about managing the audience, right? Like, I would have heard this brutality, and I would have gone, holy shit, okay, we're going there. Fuck yeah, I'm on board with this. Problematic king, show me what this motherfucker gets up to. I would have been so instantly hooked by that. I would like, okay, we open with the protagonist murdering a baby. Explicitly, loudly, like without shying away from it. I think it might also have been kind of a lot for a lot of the audience for this musical. I think a lot of people might have been a little bit like, Jesus Christ, dude, what the fuck is this? I think a lot of people would have had difficulty sort of going along with it if it had started on a note like that. It could also be quite easy if we open with the murder of a child that we actually get to hear. It could be easy for people to listen to hear that and go, oh, this is some edgelord bullshit. Right? Like, it could be easy for people to go, oh, this is something that's trying to be offensive, that's trying to be... So, like, I completely understand not doing it. I completely understand not going for that. Like, it's not a thing of, like, I don't understand why they didn't do that. No, I do understand. There's a lot of reasons not to do it. There's a lot of good reasons not to do it. What I'm saying is, I think this would have hit harder if it had been more brutal about how ruthless, how cruel, how violent, and how evil Odysseus is being here. Because yes, he's being forced into this by Zeus, right? Zeus is saying, do this or I kill your family, right? So it's not like he's completely making the choice out of his own free will. I'm not judging him on that level, right? I'm saying Superman wouldn't have done this. Like, if Superman is put in a position... Well, first of all, if Superman is ever put in a position where he has to kill a child or his family dies, he's going to find a way to save everyone because he's Superman. That's how narrative works. But as a character, if you put Clark Kent in this situation, he's going to be like, well, I'm not going to kill a child. That is simply not going to happen. And you can do whatever the fuck you want to me. You can be as cruel and evil as you like. I'm not going to do it. I'm never going to do it because I am Clark Kent. I am a hero. I am Superman. Odysseus is not Superman, right? And that's important. I think it's important that he's the monster from the start. I think it's important that he's ruthless from the start, that this is emphasized, that this is really brought up as like, no, he's there. You don't need the brutality for that. That's another thing. Like, if you're about to say in the comments, like, well, you don't, that's all in the lyrics. You don't need the sound design to make that clear. I know. I'm not arguing that you need that to make it clear. I got it, and I didn't need the baby to be crying for that. I'm saying I think it would hit harder. I'm saying I think it would be more effective, right? And I also want to be very clear about the criticisms that I'm going to make. None of these are criticisms from the perspective of like, well, if they'd only done what I said, then it would have been good instead of bad. No, absolutely not. That's not the point of the criticism that I'm making, or any criticism that I ever make, right? I'm not sitting here in judgment as though like, oh, I know the best way to do that because I am the king of musicals and of art, and I am the god of art, and I decree that only things which are done to my exacting specifications are good. No, absolutely not. That's not the point of the criticism. I'm framing a preference with an argument, right? So I don't want to see anyone in the comments like, oh, he's pretending like he knows so much better how to do. No, I'm not. I'm not pretending like I know how to do a musical better. I'm not pretending like I'm better than the composer. I am expressing preferences with arguments, and that's what criticism is. I want to say this now up front, just so that I don't have to deal with it 500 million times down the line, because I'm going to have more nitpicks like this. Indeed, as we shall see once we get to Open Arms, actually, I think is probably when I'm going to be unable to hold myself back from that anymore. But now, let's move on from baby murder to a lovely time sailing on the ship on the seas with your boys. "600 men, 600 men under my command, with only one thing in mind.
Make it back alive to our homeland.
600 men, 600 miles of open sea. But the problem's not the distance, it's what lies in the way.
And Ithaca's waiting.
My kingdom is waiting. Penelope's waiting for me. So full speed ahead. So I don't have a lot to say about the first bits of this, because it's all just kind of scene setting, right? Like, it's all right. Okay, 600 men under my command. We want to make it home, back to our homeland, and Odysseus and his crew are aligned in this, right?
Our homeland. Make it.
With only one goal in mind, make it back alive to our homeland. Right, like, so we're just establishing that Odysseus and his crew are in alignment here, right? Like, everyone's working together, everyone has the same goal in mind, everyone's thinking about the same thing. And that's being established because, well, that's what's going to fray and fall apart and break as the story goes on. But for now...
Ithaca's waiting. My kingdom is waiting. Penelope's waiting for me. So full speed ahead.
Right, and you can hear that here also, right?
Ithaca's waiting.
Ithaca's waiting. My kingdom is waiting.
He's waiting.
You can hear, like, the crew is harmonizing with him. The crew, like, when he says,
Ithaca's waiting.
Ithaca's waiting, and Ithaca's waiting, Ithaca's waiting, kingdom is waiting. Like, they're doing a call and response thing, and they're singing with him. Which, again, it's all about establishing these guys are in sync. They're singing together. They are, like, they are speaking in one voice, right? And that's where we get, again, like, the little do-do-do-do-do-do-do, like that little acoustic guitar thing, whatever it is, which, again, feels so much like this is the Ithaca theme in some way, shape, or form.
Captain, Eurylochus.
And now we start, okay, we're doing more groundwork. We're setting more scene and stages. We're introducing characters. So, Captain Eurylochus, right? We're introducing Eurylochus. We're getting his name, and his name is being said by the crew, which associates him with the crew, right? Like that he's like sort of the secondary, he is the second in command, but he's also the other guy who's the leader here, right? Like with whom Odysseus will struggle for authority.
Captain Eurylochus, 600 men. 600 men. 600 men with big mouths to feed. And we've run out of supplies to eat.
Curse the war.
Our food stores depleted.
600 men.
600 men.
600 mountains to take what we can. So Captain, what's the plan?
Captain, what's the plan?
Right, and so Eurylochus is the doubting Thomas of the crew, right? Like, he's the guy who's always bringing up the negatives, right? Like, who's always bringing up concerns and who always has doubts, right? So Odysseus opens with 600 men under my command, 600 miles of open sea. He's looking forward to the task ahead. And then Eurylochus comes in, 600 men, 600 miles of open sea. Also, we're fucking hungry, man. Like, we don't have enough food. There are problems. There are issues. It's not as simple as just full speed ahead. It's like, how are you going to feed us all?
And we've run out of supplies to eat.
Curse the war, our food stores depleted.
This is where there's an interesting... Emily Wilson takes note of this in her translator's notes. Interestingly, in the Odyssey, the characters are constantly shown eating meat, but they're almost never shown eating fish. And it seems to be a cultural thing that, yeah, you can survive on fish technically, but they don't like to do it. They don't like to fish. They want to eat actual meat, which is why they're hunting sheep. They're hunting cattle. Because there's something about eating fish, which for some reason just is not really done. Fishing for food, even though that's a thing you can do on a boat, is sort of seen as like not a worthy source of food in some ways, which I think is interesting. Again, classics experts who know more about this than I do, please expound on it in the comments. But it's an interesting thing. It doesn't get brought up in Epic the Musical. It's not important. It's a thing.
600 men.
600 men.
600 reasons
To take what we can. Right. And interestingly, Eurylochus is also someone who's arguing for ruthlessness. Multiple times over the course of the story, he argues for ruthlessness.
600 men.
600 men.
600 reasons to take what we can. right? To go raiding, to like go fucking steal the food from people if that's what's necessary.
So, Captain, what's the plan? Captain, what's the plan?
Watch where the birds fly, they will lead us to land. There will hunt the food, my second in command. Now full speed ahead. Captain Polites.
Look!
And here's a different introduction. Captain Polites. Here we get the introduction of Polites, and it follows the same format as the introduction of Eurylochus, but who says his name?
Captain Polites.
Odysseus does, right? Because Polites isn't the leader of the men. He's not a commander. He's Odysseus's close friend. That's the point here, right? Like, that's Odysseus, the one who goes, Polites, my boy! And so should we all, because Polites is the best boy.
Captain Polites. Look!
There in the distance, I see an island. I see a light that faintly glows.
Maybe there are people
Maybe
lighting
a fire, maybe they'll share some food, who knows? Something feels off here. I see fire, but there's no smoke. I say we strike first, we don't have time to wait, so let's raise the blaze and... Right? And so we get the introduction of the three of them. Polites looks to the horizon and sees opportunity, sees like possibility of friendship, of like, oh my god, like there's people, maybe they'll give us some food, who knows? Like optimism, right? He spies on the horizon. He's the one who's looking ahead to things and anticipating them with optimism in his heart. Odysseus is the one who goes, something feels off here. There's fire, but no smoke. I'm not really sure about this, but he's not taking a negative position on it. He's just like, okay, he's assessing it. And he's noticing things that are out of place. He's thinking about it, but he doesn't have a position on it.
Polites.
And then Eurylochus.
I say we strike first. We don't have time to waste, so let's break the place and...
No.
And then Eurylochus comes in, well, let's just fucking attack them then. Let's just attack them and steal their shit before anyone can react, right? Like ruthlessness. But also practicality. They kind of need food if they're going to get home, right? Like, you're going to have to make some sacrifices to get home. And Odysseus immediately...
No.
Polites, gear up. You and I'll go ahead.
You and I'll go ahead.
We should try to find a way no one ends up dead. We don't know what's ahead. Give me till sunrise. And if we don't return, then 600 men can make this whole place burn.
Now for speed.
Right? And this is Odysseus taking Polites' side, right? Like, sharing Polites' perspective a little bit, right? We should try to find a way that no one ends up dead. And again, this is one of the things, if it had been more clear that in Just a Man, like if they, my suggestion being the baby crying, that's not the only way you could possibly do it. If they'd been more clear, like, he has just murdered an infant, right? Like, he's just murdered a child. He's just done the worst violence that is possible to do to a human being, right? Someone completely innocent who was no threat to him, really. He decided to kill him for convenience. This, to me, feels like Odysseus is like, we should try and find a way no one ends up dead. Please, no more infant murder.
You and I'll go ahead. We should try to find a way no one ends up dead.
We don't know what's ahead. Right, and Eurylochus arguing back, it's like, we don't know what's there, man. Like, we can't, like, we have to take care of ourselves first.
Dead.
We don't know what's ahead.
Give me till sunrise, and if we don't return, then 600 men can make this whole place burn.
Now for speed.
And so Odysseus strikes the compromise, right? Like, give me till sunrise, like, just give me some time, let's try and figure this out. And then if I can't, okay, fine, you can burn the whole place, but let's... Like, no more killing, please. I would like there to be no more killing, because my conscience is really guilty already.
Speed ahead.
Full speed ahead. Full speed ahead.
We're off and away we go.
We're off and away.
Full speed ahead. Full speed ahead. And then we end the song with all of the crew singing in harmony, because again, Odysseus has managed to navigate the power relationship, the dynamic. He's managed to reestablish harmony and command, right? where you had these different voices pulling him in different directions. He manages to harmonize them all. Everyone has a plan. Full speed ahead, on we go. It's not a song that I have much to say about because it's all about setting the stage. It's all about setting up dominoes that can be knocked down later, right? Polites especially. I wish he got to have a little bit more of a role. I wish he got to have more than the one song Open Arms. I wish he got to get to be a little bit more of a presence in Odysseus's life before we get to Polyphemus. But, you know, that's what it is. But the point here is to establish Odysseus in the middle, Devil on the one shoulder, Angel on the other shoulder. And, like, Polites is the angel on his shoulder. It's his better nature. It's optimism, it's kindness, it's believing in the best in people, it's wanting the best for everybody, it's generousness and selflessness, right? On the other side, Eurylochus, who is much more cynical, who's much more concerned, who's much more self-centered, who's much more uncertain, in some ways insecure, who sort of is the devil on his shoulder saying, like, fuck that, let's take care of ourselves first, right? Like, let's take care of ourselves, Remember that for later, because Eurylochus is going to have his own moment of reckoning with his human weaknesses and his hypocrisy, but that's going to come later. So it's all about setting up dominoes for, like, how these things are going to fall, which lets us move on to Open Arms.
You can relax, my friend.
Huh?
I can tell you're getting nervous, so do yourself a service and try to relax, my friend.
Fine polities.
Think of all that we have been through. We'll survive what we get into. I know that you're tired of the war and bloodshed. Tell me, is this how we're supposed to live?
Look at how you grip your sword, and I've said,
Why should we take what we could give?
you can show person that you trust them when you stop and lower your guard.
Here you got a chance for some adjustment. Give it a chance, it's not that hard.
I'm telling you,
This life is amazing when you greet it with open arms. Whatever we face, we'll be fine if we're leading from the heart. Whatever the times, we will light up the world. Here's how to start. Greet the world with open arms. Greet the world with open arms. I just don't have the range to sing this song. But again, angel on his shoulder. You're like Polites being the guy to express this. Greet the world with open arms, right? No matter the place, we can light up the world. Here's how to start. Greet the world with open arms. It's such a beautiful sentiment, and it's a classically heroic sentiment. Like, I didn't bring up Superman earlier for no reason. This is a fucking Superman-ass sentiment, right? This is the shit that Superman would say. Like, we can all be better. We can all make the world a better place. Like, oh, bad things have happened. Well, a better tomorrow is possible. Like, Polites is so sweet, and he's so good. He's such a good boy. I love him so much. Oh, poor Polites, you are in the wrong universe, my friend. And then there's the clap, 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 clap. And, like, I like that the clapping is part of his motif. He literally is a cheerleader. Like, clap, I can't fucking make my avatar clap. It doesn't really track the hands that well. When the hands get too close together, it just kind of gives up the camera tracking because it can't differentiate them. But that his motif is clapping, right? Like, he's literally a cheerleader. Like, he's literally the guy who's like, yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8. Like, who's willing to cheer his commander, his best friend on, right?
you can relax,
My friend. Giving him a fucking therapy pep talk in the middle of it.
You can relax,
My friend.
Huh?
I can tell you're getting nervous, so do yourself a service and try to relax, my friend.
fine polities. Think of all that we have been through. We'll
Survive what we get into. I know that you're tired of the war and bloodshed. Tell me, is that how you're supposed to live? I know to grip your sword and upset. Why should we take what we could give? You could show a person that you trust in when you stop and lower your guard. Here we got a chance for some adjustment. Give it a try, it's not that hard, I'm telling you. Right? And he's also speaking against Odysseus' trauma, right? Like, Odysseus has gone through some shit in the Trojan War, and he's suspicious, and he is tired, and he's scared, and he's guilty. Such a guilty conscience. And Polites diagnoses that in him instantly, right? Like, I can see how you grip your sword with such strength, right? Like, enough said. Why should we take when we can give, right? Like, here, we have a chance to change things. We have a chance to make things better. We have a chance to see the world in a different way.
This life is amazing when you greet it with open arms. No matter we face, we'll be fine if we're leading from the heart. No matter the place, we can light up the world. Here's how to start. Greet the world with open arms.
I should really, in hindsight, I should really have warmed up my voice before I tried to do this if I was gonna sing along to these fucking things.
Greet the world with open arms. Greet the world with open arms.
Welcome. And now we get the fuck. I can't hear these guys.
Stay back.
My friend, greet the world with open arms.
600 friends. Stay back, I'm warning. If we don't get back safely, my men will turn this place into blazes.
I can't, like, the little munchkin things, like the little creatures. Here you go. The only thing I can hear, and I'm sorry, the only thing I hear when I hear those little, like, munchkin voices that he uses for like critters and stuff, is the fucking aliens from Toy Story. The claw, like that. It's the only thing I can hear in my head every time I hear these fucking songs where those voices appear. All I can imagine is Odysseus being confronted with a little fucking green alien men from Toy Story. I'm sorry, it's the only image in my head. It's the only way I can imagine them. There is no cinematic, there's no animatic, there's not an official movie adaptation on Earth that could ever get me to imagine them as anything other than the little green space aliens from Toy Story. The claw. Right? Welcome. Like, this is fucking Buzz Lightyear and Woody are there over in the corner arguing over who's a toy or not. Like, fucking Toy Story, lots of love, Bear, the thing from the third or fourth movie, one of them, whatever, is fucking there. Like, I swear to God, the Pizza Planet delivery truck is like driving by as a cameo in the background. It's the little aliens from Toy Story. I can't unhear it.
Welcome. Stay back.
My friend, greet the world with open arms.
We're only here for food. 600 friends are waiting for us to show our faces. Stay back, I'm warning you. It's the aliens from Toy Story. It's the only thought I have in my head. I can't think of anything else. But again, it's the point of the scene is Odysseus is reacting the way that a person with trauma might act, right? Like, he sees everything as a potential threat, right? He sees these people, these critters, these creatures, the lotus eaters in the cave, and he's like, sword! Stay back! I'm scared! Right? Like, he's reacting with fear and with anger and with violence instinctively. And Polites is talking him down.
See? This life is amazing when you greet it with open arms. Whatever
and as he sings,
see? This life is amazing when you greet it with open arms.
And he gets the harmony from the little green space aliens from Toy Story.
Whatever we face, we'll be fine if we're leading from the heart. No matter the place, so we can light up the world. Here's how to start. Greet the world with open arms. Greet the world with open arms.
My friend,
I wish that I could say that I agree, but look at the way this fruit is glowing and filled with glowing seeds.
it took me a while to notice just what
Kind of fruit they eat. It's a lotus. It consumes your mind and never lets you free. That's what we'd get with open arms.
Right. And so there's this dialogue, this debate going on between the two of them. It's like, Polites is like, see? Like, we asked for food and they gave us food. Look, everything could be nice. And then Odysseus is like, yeah, but like the food is bad, actually. It's actually bad food. It's evil food that evil people give you. So therefore, that's not, no optimism. Sword, violence, anger, fear, right? Like he's holding on to that.
arms.
Lotus eaters, I'd like to show my friend that kindness is brave.
Could you tell me where
There's other food to eat. A cave.
a cave?
The scary cave. They do warn him, I will say.
Other food to eat.
A cave. Scary cave.
A cave.
They say that there's a cave where we could feast.
And where do we sail to
Find that food-filled cave. East. That way. Aliens. A little Toy Story aliens.
Thank you.
This life is amazing when you greet it with open arms. What in your face? There's so much guilt inside your heart.
So why not replace it and
Light up the world, here's how to start. Greet the world with open arms. Greet the world with open arms.
greet the world with open
Right, and Polites again proves, like, okay, we can't eat the lotuses. Is there somewhere else where you can find something to eat? And they just tell him, and he's like, see?
This life is amazing
When you greet it with open arms.
I see in your face there's
So much guilt inside your heart.
So why
Right, and it's all about Polites knows that Odysseus is suffering. Odysseus is feeling guilty. Odysseus is unbalanced, right?
this life is amazing when you greet it.
And that's the thing. He's so good. He's such a sweet boy. He deserves so much better. But I think Polites might be the last person in the story until arguably, and very arguably, Calypso, and in her case it's debatable, who's actually trying to take care of Odysseus. Right? Like this is the last person who's showing him that level of compassion and care. Is Polites, is the only one who's like, dude, you're not okay after what we've just been through. Hey, just sit with me here for a sec. Like, take a deep breath. Let's do some breathing exercises. Let's calm down. Let's try and process what we've just been through. Maybe everything doesn't have to be as horrible as it was in the war. Maybe the world can possibly be a better place. Polites is like the last one who does that before everything starts going right to hell for poor Odysseus. Everyone else in the story, none of them treat him quite like this.
This life is amazing when you greet it with open arms.
I see in your face there's so much guilt inside your heart.
So why not replace it and
Light up the world, here's how to start.
greet the world with
I told you I'd
open
harmonize
arms.
badly.
Greet the world with open arms.
Greet the world with open arms. You can relax, my friend. Right. And Odysseus finally begins to accept it a little bit. Like, okay, shit. It would be nicer if we could do that, right? Be nicer if we could greet the world with open arms. If we could just... But of course, there's someone else who doesn't quite agree. Now, Athena. Athena is an interesting character. So, in the Odyssey, Athena is not really present with Odysseus ever. Until he gets to Ithaca, basically. She shows up in disguise for him a couple of times, I think, just to sort of fuck with him and help him a little bit, but doesn't announce herself. Like, she doesn't really have dialogue with Odysseus. She doesn't really talk to him. She's not really his friend. There's not much of a relationship between them in the Odyssey. Maybe there is in the Iliad, I don't remember. But, so this idea of Odysseus and Athena as, like, these two people who are friends, but also are kind of tsundere about it, that Athena really doesn't want to admit that Odysseus is his friend, and that she actually cares for him a lot more than she's willing to let on. That's entirely something that I think Epic the Musical invents in order to give Athena a character, because in the Odyssey, Athena isn't really much of a... Well, that's not true. She is a character. She's present. She does a lot of things, but she's not much of a person. Because she is the goddess of wisdom, and she doesn't have flaws or foibles. In the Odyssey itself, again, I have read the Emily Wilson version, gods can't really be wrong. They can't really have flaws, they can't really be incorrect, they can't make mistakes, because they are gods. right? And so what they do, what they say, like everything they say will come true because they are gods who said it, right? Everything they do will succeed because they are gods who are doing it. They can have debates and disagreements with each other and like overcome each other, but they're not really people. They're not really presented as people as such, as characters with flaws and character arcs and motivations and things like that. In fact, the Odyssey opens, like the very first thing that happens in the Odyssey as it's written, as it's usually written down, is that like Athena goes to Zeus and is like, hey, Odysseus has been trapped on an island for a long time. He should go home now. And then Zeus is like, yeah, he should. That's fine, actually. Poseidon isn't here to object, so let's just all vote. Yep, he's going to go home. Cool. Go tell Calypso to let him go. And just go make sure that his son is ready to welcome him home and stuff, right? Like there's no really debate over it, and Athena isn't really doing it out of a love for Odysseus so much as just like that she just feels that Odysseus is a cool guy, right? It's not out of a personal friendship so much as, well, Odysseus honors the gods, and he's sensible and smart, and he probably shouldn't suffer so much, so we'll just let him go. The epic invents a much closer relationship between the two of them, a much more personal relationship between the two of them, which I think is really interesting. It's something that I like. I also feel it's a little underexplored, because the very first time we're about to hear from Athena is here, right? In Warrior of the Mind. That's her introduction. It's the first time we really get to see her as a character. And it's also where we immediately set up that these two characters are they are introduced in conflict, right? Immediately Athena shows up and she's just berating him. As we'll hear, like Athena shows up, is like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you being kind? I didn't teach you to be this way. Like she shows up and she nags him, right? Like she nags him, she criticizes him, she gives him shit, right? And eventually that's going to lead to like their relationship falling apart in the next saga. My feeling is Athena, the way that she's introduced sort of out of nowhere, this new character who we haven't met before, where we haven't pre-established any relationship with Odysseus, it's just kind of introduced, and then it's like, oh shit, they're having a friendship breakup. Oh no. But it's hard to really invest in it because we haven't seen the state of their relationship when they were in harmony yet. Right. Which is where I feel a song before The Horse and the Infant, where Athena is helping and supporting Odysseus planning the attack, might have been helpful, like more of an introduction for him and Athena and their relationship, so that it can be more important when it breaks apart, so that can signify a transition from Odysseus being in one state, which he's in during the war in Troy, and then that the murder of the child is one of the things that turns Odysseus against Athena. Because that's, again, my interpretation is that that's what's happening in the story, is that the gods tell Odysseus to murder a child. He murders a child, and he feels broken about it. He's so guilty. He's trying to justify it. He's trying to find some way to feel okay with it, but all he hears are screams, right? Like, everything the gods have ever told him to do has just led him to misery and ruin and disaster. And it fucking sucks. And Polites is encouraging him to be more human, right? Like, hey, what if things could not suck? What if things could be good, actually? What if things could be nice? And then Athena shows up, actually, dude, that's fucking stupid. Being nice? That's dumb. You're a moron. Your friend Polites? He's a piece of shit. And then Odysseus turns on her and goes like, fuck off then. Eventually went after what happens in the Cyclops saga, right? That's when Odysseus finally turns on her and goes, well, fuck off then, right? Like, you're not helping me. You're not helping anyone. You're just making me more miserable. Why should I listen to you? The problem is, I think it needs a little bit more groundwork before we get to that point. Like, that's a feeling I've had about Epic since the first time I listened to it. It's like, I wish there was a little bit more in Odysseus and Athena's relationship before it breaks up to sort of explain why she then goes and mourns and tries to make up for the broken relationship by helping Telemachus, right? And one of the things I've had, we'll get to Warrior of the Mind in a second. Where is it?
Is the son of none other than Troy's very own Prince Hector.
Right. I think if instead of Zeus, like if we get like here that Odysseus is like an infant, absolutely not. I will not kill an infant. How could he possibly be a threat to me? That it's Athena who comes down and says, actually, Odysseus, this is the son of Prince Hector. He'll find you. He'll do it. And that she's the one, rather than Odysseus here, who has the dialogue, right? I could raise him as my own. Right, if here as Odysseus is making all of his objections, right? Like, I could raise him as my own, and then it's Athena who says, no, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. And then when he says, right, that it's once Zeus finally gets fed up with this mortal arguing with his daughter, right, that he sees, like, the gods will make it known, this is the will of the gods, fuck you, do it. But if Athena had been there, and she had been the one telling him, no, Odysseus, you kind of got to kill the kid, actually. You kind of got to murder a child. Where it's clear that, like, what she's doing is she's trying to prevent Odysseus from offending Zeus by arguing with him, right? That she's, Odysseus is about to argue with Zeus, the king of the gods, and say, no, I don't want to do that. That's not something you do to Zeus. Zeus doesn't tolerate it when people defy him. And then Athena steps in, and she's clearly trying to save Odysseus by being like, actually, my lord father, let me just have a word with him. What the fuck are you doing, man? Listen to what Zeus is saying. He's gonna fucking kill you. You have to do what he says. Like, if Athena is the one who has the argument with Odysseus about, no, this is necessary. I'm sorry, it sucks, I know, but it's necessary. You have to do it. You're a warrior of the mind. Trust in our relationship, right? Like, I will set you straight. I will lead you straight. Because then it becomes more clear that when Athena and Odysseus have their breakup, when he finally goes, no, fuck you, fuck off, I don't need you, I don't want you in my life anymore. Like, you're leading me to misery all the fucking time. And all you do is criticize and like make me more miserable. That it's partly because he's projecting, like, he's blaming her for getting him into a situation where he has to kill a baby, right? So, like, my foe is dead, like, my friend is dead, our foe is blind, the blood we shed, it never dries. Is this what it means to be a warrior of the mind, right? Like, is this what you've promised me? Is this what you've led me to, the glory that you've set for me? Okay, cool. Fuck you and fuck the gods. That Odysseus has this grudge, right? Like, that's built up where when he says fuck off, it's partly because he's still coping with the fact that he murdered a child, right? That's my opinion on Odysseus and Athena's relationship, is that it needed a little bit more presence. I would have loved her to be more obvious, at least. Like, even if she's not the one taking the argument, that her voice was clear in the chorus of the gods, right? That it's clear that when Zeus is telling Odysseus to do this, that Athena is there and nodding and saying, yep, you have to do this. Like, that she's part of it, right? That to me would have been stronger and would have created a much stronger break and a stronger sense of a relationship that's falling apart because of Odysseus' war trauma than Warrior of the Mind being the first time we get to see her.
Have you forgotten the lessons I taught you?
Athena! And it's interesting, Athena is also introduced in the same way as the other crew members, right? Like, in the same way that, like, Captain Polites, it's like, have you forgotten the lessons I taught you? Athena, right? Like, she says something, then someone says her name. I just think that's a neat detail.
Have you forgotten to turn off your heart? This is not you. I see you changing from how I've designed you.
Have you forgotten your purpose? Let me remind you.
Goddess of wisdom.
This fucking piano riff, by the way.
Master of war. Wisdom. Master of war. My life has one mission.
Like, and I will say I really like this about Epic the Musical, the way that the gods are more associated with synthesizers and electronic instruments, and I do like the piano as Athena's instrument as well, because a piano is this very discrete, like, here's a completely ordered, rational collection of notes, and you push the button and it plays the note, and that's all it does. Compare and contrast that with an electric guitar, for example, where you can bend and slide and do all of these, like, subtle in-between motions, whereas a piano, it's like, you press the key, you get the note, right? Like, logical progression, like action-reaction, action and consequence, like this very logically laid out, structured instrument. Like, I feel that's a really good fit for Athena. And like, these piano riffs, man. My life has one mission. Create the perfect warrior. I cannot follow her at all. But like, this is where we're getting introduced to all of Athena's personality, right? Like, my life has one mission: create the greatest warrior. Oh, okay. And that's like, okay, cool. If we had gotten to see even a little bit of that process, that's what she's doing with Odysseus, that she's grooming him to be her perfect warrior, right? Like, and that's why she's so disappointed when Polites starts to convince him to not be as ruthless as she needs him to be, right? That needed a little bit more work ahead of time, I feel, to establish what it is Athena wants, why she wants it, how she's going about it, and what it means for Odysseus. I feel like that's missing, that we're only getting this here when the first thing she's doing is berating Odysseus about failing to live up to her expectations, right?
I had a challenge, a test of skill.
A magic for only the best could kill.
One day a boy came for the thrill.
A boy whose mind rivaled the boar's own will. Let's go!
Maybe one day he'll follow me and we'll make a greater tomorrow. Then they'll see I know he'll change the world, 'cause he is a
Warrior of the mind. Okay, so this is the first instance of one of the criticisms I have of Epic the Musical.
A boy who maybe one day he'll follow me and we'll make a greater tomorrow.
This is good. Maybe one day he'll follow me and we'll build a greater tomorrow. This is Athena lighting up with possibility, right? Like, she sees this boy, this Odysseus, who's so smart, who's so clever, who has what it takes, right? She goes, that's the guy. That's the guy. I could turn him into the perfect warrior. Like, just like exactly the thing I've always wanted to make. This guy, he has the potential, right? Like, all of this potential.
Then they'll see I know he'll change the world, 'cause he is a warrior of the mind.
Then there's this verse where it's like, then they'll see I know he'll change the world because he's a warrior of the mind. That's a little bit like, what? Like, I got the first part, that this is her motivation, that she has this innate drive and desire to want to make the perfect warrior. And then it's like, then they'll see, I know he'll change the world. Huh? What? Is that what you want? You want them to see that you know that he'll change the world? That's, as a character motivation, that's really confusing. Is it because of, do you want to show them all? Like they all thought that I couldn't make the perfect warrior, but I'll show them that I know that he'll change the... That's not very strong. Like, as an expression of a character's motivation, which is what this song is about, is that it's about expressing why Athena feels the way that she does. It's like, they'll see, I know he'll change the world. Okay, is that your accomplishment? It's like everyone go, yep. Oh man, we were so wrong. Athena definitely knew that he would change the world. Wow. Huh? Isn't it like, isn't the idea that you make the perfect warrior so that he changes the world, so that everyone goes, holy shit, Athena's principles, her beliefs are amazing, right? Like, shit, like that girl knows how to run the world. She knows how to do things to get things done. Surely it should be something like that. And the phrasing of it is also,
Then they'll see I know he'll change the world, 'cause
then they'll see I know he'll change the world, 'cause it's clunky. This to me is not great lyrics writing. It feels a lot more like this is calculated to fit, like to fit something into a meter rather than being designed to actually get anything across. This feels like it's filling time, like a latter half of a verse where it's like, okay, I need to do something here until we get to the next section. But then they'll see, I know he'll change the world because he's a warrior of the mind. That's why. This is weak. And this happens a couple of places in Epic the Musical where I feel like the lyrics writing is a little bit on the clunky side, a little bit. I know it's not a first draft, like not by a million miles, but it has that first draft energy of like, I need to get from here to there. I'm not really sure what's gonna go in between there, so I'll just put a placeholder there, and then it was like, where there's an opportunity here, I feel like, to express a more coherent motivation for Athena, rather than I want them to see that I know that he'll change the world because he's a warrior of the mind. That to me is not, for a goddess like Athena, is not strong enough. Like, it should be, like, because her motivation can be petty. I would like it if it was just, I'm gonna rub Ares' fucking nose in it. No, like, then Ares will have to concede that I am the greater warrior. Like, then, like, if she's out for her own glory, right? Like, that's fine. That's a good motivation for a god to have, because that's also something Odysseus, like, throws in her face later, right? Like, it's like, you're selfish, prideful, and vain. You're just out for your own glory, but you're alone, right? Like, that's the thing he throws in her face when they break up, is that she's just focused on her own stupid glory, and she doesn't care about family or friends or house or home or any of the things that really matter. This song is an opportunity to demonstrate that her motives are a little bit petty. That is like she sees all of this potential in Odysseus, and she's excited about it because why? Because then they'll see, I know he'll change the world. Oh, okay. What if, like, and I should say, I don't know how to write this into a better lyric. I don't know how to make that rhyme. That would take me a while to try and do, but this feels like the place where you kind of go express something deeper about, like, what's the emotional drive of Athena to do this? Why is she invested in making the perfect warrior? Why is that something that matters to her? That's really missing for me. Why she cares about turning Odysseus into the perfect warrior. And, like, just have it be because she hates her brother. Like, because her brother is the god of war and he thinks he's so much better than her. And they're having have had like a fight for 1,000 years over this. And she's about, like, here's the guy who's going to finally prove that my methods are the best ones. I'm going to beat all of his, like, I'm going to put you up against all of Ares' best warriors. You're going to beat all of their asses. We're going to grind his nose into that shit. And I'll be the best god of war ever. Master of war, right? Something here is missing from Athena's motivation for why she gives a shit about this, that would again have made their relationship breakup a lot stronger, and also would make it a lot stronger when in the Wisdom Saga we get to see Athena, like, turn and begin to care about Odysseus for his own sake, and not just for what he could be to her, like, not just for the tool that he could be in her own conquest, and that she's putting herself at risk. Because Athena is another character who turns from, like, it's interesting because Athena kind of has the opposite arc that Odysseus does, right? Like, Athena starts the story in the position of being ruthless, right? Like, of, like, turn off your heart, kill, be ruthless, like, don't be sentimental, be a warrior of the mind, be rational. And then, by the Wisdom Saga, she has actually gone, no, actually, I'm gonna fight for a guy just because it's the right thing to do, right? Like, I'm gonna help him. I'm gonna help my friend because I care about him, and not because it's smart, not because it's clever, not because it's ruthless, but because I care about him. Let him go. Please let him go, right? Athena kind of has the opposite arc to Odysseus, which I really like. I like that they kind of go on opposite journeys in the way that they go, that Athena gets to meet her own polities, which is Telemachus, and Telemachus influences her to be softer, right, in that sense. I like that. It's just, in order for that to really, really hit, to really land, before we get to that point, we kind of need a better motivation for her. We need something better for her to grow from, right? A place for her to start that can then turn into something else eventually. And I don't think we get that in Warrior of the Mind.
Then they'll see I know he'll
It's a banger, though. Again, all of the songs in this fucking musical are bangers.
Then they'll see
I know he'll change the world, 'cause he is a warrior of the mind. Oh, I could not hit that note. Next time I'll drink some tea and warm up, I swear. But this note, so this is something the only reason I noticed this and I know this is because I saw that Jorge had made TikToks about it. Like, he's made many, like, short videos explaining his process and what he does in the musical, and I do love this detail. Mind. Right, like that the first instance of Warrior of the Mind is just a held note. Mind. Straightforward, logical, reasonable, just like from point A to point B, straight line, held note. Athena.
maybe one day I'll reach him
And we can build his skills as I teach him.
If there's a problem,
He'll have an answer. He is a warrior of the mind. She sings the note straight. We'll come back to that. Show yourself. I know you're watching me. Show yourself. And we get the peril theme again, right? Like, do-do, 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 do-do. We get the peril theme again because Odysseus is suspicious and he might be in danger or something. And then we get all the electronic effects, like time reversing. We get a lot of that in the...
Show yourself.
Like those... Those are definitely... I don't know what the sound effects are exactly, but they're definitely a sound being played in reverse, right? Because time control, right? Like that's Athena's whole thing, is she can make time go faster or slower or whatever.
Show yourself. I can see you.
How can you see through my spell?
I was lying, and you fell for my bluff.
I like that Odysseus is such a little shit here. I do like, I was lying and you fell for it. Like, so fucking smug, so fucking full of himself. It's like, little shit, little fucking teenage motherfucker, right? Like, you get that instantly from that little, like, I was lying and you fell for it. Like, I like that. I like that he's such a little shithead. Well done, you lied to me, what's your name?
Well done, enlighten me.
Oh, actually, that's a Mondegreen. That's a lyric I got wrong for a long time. I thought Athena sings, well done, you lied to me, what's your name? What she actually sings is, well done, enlighten me, what's your name? But I got it wrong for a long time until I read the lyrics. And then we get, like, the Odysseus guitars again. Din 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 din.
Well done, enlighten me, what's your name?
You first, and
Right, so we get Odysseus's guitars, and we get, like, the tick 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 of Athena's clock, and then the piano chords sort of come. So we get this mixing of their musical motifs as they begin to have this little cute little dialogue with each other. Right, well done, enlighten me, what's your name? You first, and maybe I'll do the same. And like, they go back and forth. I like the mixing that happens there.
you first, and maybe I'll do the same.
Nice try, but two can play that game. Nah, don't be modest. I know you're a goddess, so let's be honest.
You are Athena, badass in the arena, unmatched, witty and queen of the best strategies we've seen.
If you're looking for a mentor, I'll make sure your time's well spent. Sounds like a plan, goddess and man, bestest of friends, we'll see where it ends. Okay. And again, I like this, that like Odysseus immediately goes, yeah, we're buddies, we're best of friends. She's like, yeah, let's slow down there. There's like, didn't say friends, I said mentor. Like, I like that Odysseus is so quick to embrace it, like, goddess and man, best little friends, and she shuts that shit down immediately. I like that. Again, good characterization of their relationship, right? Like that Athena keeps trying to have this distance, but Odysseus is just so damn likable, and he's such a charming, charismatic little asshole, right? That you kind of can't help but like him, and you can see how, even though Athena only intended to be his mentor, only intended to be his like teacher, that she kind of couldn't help but fall in love with him a little bit as a friend, right? Like to develop a little bit of that, like, shit, I actually like him, fuck, right? I like that that's present there. Again, I would have wished that there was a song before the horse and the infant that's like the planning, the fight, whatever, where they get to have a little bit of banter, a little bit of dialogue. We kind of get to see that Athena is trying to be very serious and professional and be a mentor, and Odysseus is constantly like, hey, jabbing her in the ribs, making a little joke, like making her laugh or whatever. That we had a little bit more exploration of that relationship before we get to the fracturing.
Strategies we've seen.
If you're looking for a mentor, I'll make sure your time's well spent.
By the way, the word mentor, it comes from the Odyssey. As far as not from, it's a name in the Odyssey, let's put it that way. In the Odyssey, there's a character named Mentor. He's a friend of Odysseus' family. He's an old friend of Telemachus, and Athena takes on the guise of Mentor when she goes to Ithaca and tells Telemachus to start like getting ready to become a man, essentially, like to go on his own journey to discover himself. She takes on the guise of the person mentor, and the word mentor has then entered the general lexicon of the English language as a byword for a teacher, for someone who teaches and who like transmits knowledge and takes someone under their wing to teach them, right? Like, so it's a fun little full circle moment here where it's like Athena says, are you looking for a mentor? Because Odysseus has a friend whose name is Mentor, technically. But Mentor doesn't show up in Epic the Musical, I believe. So, but it's just one of those fun little things.
If you're looking for a mentor, I'll make sure your time's well spent.
Sounds like a plan, goddess and man, bestest of friends, we'll see where it ends. Okay. It's, I really do like this.
Maybe one day they'll follow me and we'll make
A greater tomorrow, then they'll see I know he'll change the world, 'cause he are the warriors of the mind. Ugh, bad harmony. But the point is,
We are the warriors of the mind.
right, that Athena still sings mind straight, right? Warrior of the mind. But then Odysseus, mind. And then we do it again.
Maybe one day we'll reach them, and we can build their skills as we teach them. If there's a problem, we'll have the answer. We are the warriors of the mind.
And then we get the full mix, right? Mind. Right, where Athena now, rather than singing it straight, she has absorbed this from Odysseus, right? Like that he was singing this like up and down harmony. And she can't help but do the same thing, that they are singing in harmony with each other. It's not just Athena singing straight, because that's where it starts, right? Like it starts with Athena sings the note straight, and then Odysseus goes on this little sort of crooked... And then Athena sings it straight, like, and Odysseus is like following her, but he's introducing his own creativity into it. And then Athena, like, as a way to show in music, just in song. And again, I only know this because Jorge Rivera-herrans himself made a video talking about that this is specifically what he did. This is not my analysis. This is not me being clever. It's just, I like it. I think that's really, really, really cool as a way to show that, yes, like, Athena is being influenced by Odysseus, right? It's not just that she's teaching him, he is getting to her, right? Like, they have a relationship, whether they want to or not. She can't help but give in to his creativity and his charm and be influenced by him and, like, take some of his qualities onto herself. I like that. As a piece of musical storytelling, that's really fucking good. That's really, really good. And it, again, is one of those things that makes me wish I would have loved to hear them have a song in the present day, not in the flashback, but in the present day, where both of them are singing and we get to hear that musical relationship go back and forth between them, right? And then we get here and we get, like, the explanation of, like, oh, that's why it sounds like that, but Athena didn't used to be like that. She used to be different. And, like, as you say, a lot of my criticism of Epic the Musical, quite a lot of it is, I wish there was more of it. Just, there are so many things where it's like, that thing, you could build that out with 2 or 3 more, like 1 or 2 more songs with these characters doing things. Oh my god, I would have loved that so much. That would have made everything so much better. More, please. More, please, Mr. Herrans. But I also recognize that there are probably good reasons for why songs get cut and why they don't get put in there. Certainly for the first album of the concept album, like the first phase of it, the first Saga, I completely understand if in the process of making this, he went through a process of being like, I gotta cut some shit. I gotta cut everything that's extraneous. I can't waste the audience's time. It can't be too much. It needs to be short and to the point and specific, and, like, we need to hit the highlights. We can't go messing around with, like, filler, right? I completely understand if there was some pressure like that where he cut down a bunch of stuff that he wanted to include because this was the first one. It needs to make an impression. We can't have a bunch of, like, stuff on it that's not bangers. Only the most necessary parts. And that's a healthy process creatively, by the way, is to kill your darlings. Like, cut everything out that isn't absolutely necessary. That can be healthy. I just, having listened to the Wisdom Saga, right? Like, it does get to a point where I'm like, if we're going to have a whole Wisdom Saga with Athena and her journey, I do think there needs to be a little bit more here. Like, because the Troy Saga is set up. All of it is set up. Everything that's in this thing is set up for stuff that happens later. And the Wisdom Saga, Athena is missing a little bit of setup. It's missing a little bit of like why, like what's their relationship like that Athena eventually decides to confront Zeus, the king of the gods, in order to save Odysseus. That part I think is missing a little bit. And could have been included more. Like, whether that's Athena being the one who talks Odysseus into killing the baby, right? Whether that's having a song where they're planning the attack on Troy, whether that's, like, whatever it is, I think that's my major thing with the Troy saga, is I'm missing just a little bit more of setup for Athena if we're gonna have a whole saga that revolves around her like that. That's really it.
But when
Does a comet become a meteor? When does a candle become a blaze? When does a man become a monster? When does a ripple become a tidal wave? When does the reason become the blame? When does a man become a monster? When
Does a comet become a meteor? When does a
forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me.
This fucking section, though, like, there's a reason this shit went so fucking viral on TikTok. There's a reason why this was over all of the edits for everything. For every anime, for every movie, for every TV show, for Baldur's Gate 3. There's a reason this was all over it. Because one thing I will say for Epic the Musical, Jorge Rivera-Herrans can write a fucking melody. He can write a fucking melody, I tell you fucking what. He can write a melody. Not just notes that happen to follow one another, but a melody, some shit that gets in your head and sits there and you can't stop thinking about it. God damn can he do that, that motherfucker. Oh, this bit, just this fucking bit, genuinely chills. Like when I'm not in critical, like, oh yes, I have criticisms, and like, oh, why isn't there a baby crying, and why isn't there violence, and why isn't Athena there, and when I'm not complaining about everything, when I'm not criticizing, when I just sit down and I listen, this fucking bit, man, and that's all over. Like, fucking Full Speed Ahead is just, I don't have much to say about it because it's all set up, but musically, now full speed ahead, and like with the chorus and off and away we go, right? Like these little hooks, these little earworms that he plants there that are just sitting there waiting to ambush you and burrow their fucking way into your brain. They're fucking all over the place with the fucking leitmotifs. It's really good. I have talked about, I don't know how long, I split the recording up so that I could take breaks between each bit so that I wouldn't overload my voice. But I have talked about Epic the Musical now for longer than some time. I've talked about it for a duration of, this bit is half an hour, and then the other bits. Let me just check. I can check the runtime on these things. Okay, it's going to be 2 hours probably for the first saga. Yeah, it's definitely a good thing that I did not include the animatics, because we would still be here for hours. It's really good. I really like Epic the Musical. It's really fucking good. I can complain about it until the cows come home, and I will in the rest of these videos. Oh my god, I will complain so much. I will sing more bad harmonies. I will sing along to every fucking song, especially the ones I don't actually have the range to sing. I will do it because it's good. God damn it. It's fucking good. It really is. And you don't know how much strength it has taken me not to listen to the Ithaca saga. You don't know what I've sacrificed for you people, what I've done for you, that I've held myself back just so I could do it in a reaction video for you motherfuckers. I have sacrificed. I'm just a man. I'm just a man. All of this is to say, comment, subscribe, like, YouTube things. Also, merchandise store is, I have it. It's a store with merchandise on it. There's a mug that says trans rights. There's also a skull because of, I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember why there's a skull. Some t-shirts and things. You can buy them if you want to, or you don't have to. You can also not buy them. That's completely okay. But I have to promote myself. and you owe it to me because I have sacrificed. No, you don't. You don't owe me a goddamn thing. It is more than enough that you have paid attention to me for this long while I yap about a fucking musical. That's more than enough. You don't have to give me a cent, a dollar, or a dime if you don't want to. But I appreciate it if you do. Anyway, yeah, I think that's it. Bye.